People say really stupid things to you when you've lost a child. And, it falls in that everything happens for a reason category is bullshit. That's bullshit. The reason is this sucks, and this is stupid, and this is not cool, and, it's not just a reason. But it's something people say to make you feel better, or this is God's plan because it makes you feel better. And so trying to navigate through that, those are tough conversations to have with a kid who should be more concerned about playing Fortnite than whether or not there is a God,
Right.
So.
When the courts, the legislature, and the institutions that govern our daily lives are broken, we have to look for ways to make the world a better place on our own. We're learning from people who know you don't have to go to big cities to do big things. This is Midwesticism. This episode features Kari, Rhinehart, and Stacie Davidson, two Central Indiana moms who are leading a movement to expose the causes of a cluster of pediatric cancers.
What is it that we're looking at?
So that blue building is almost like the shed. It's a pump and treat. That's what's been running since the late 90s.
It's a pump and treat for what?
For the contamination that's on the site. So all of these little sticks that are up from the ground, those are monitoring wells. So
Like these little rust-colored
yes,
things that are
those metal stick things are all monitoring wells, and the pump and treat pulls from those wells and then pulls out any of the toxins and discharges the toxins into the air, and then returns the rest of the groundwater. So this has been running for 30 years, supposedly containing the contamination.
Well, what's the contamination?
TCE, PCE, all kind of mostly volatile organic compounds, but the big two are TCE and PCE.
How is that?
They're both degreasers. PCE is used a lot for stain removers and dry cleaning. The plume is the area of contamination, so you can think of it kind of like, well, for example, there's a groundwater plume where that's the water underneath the ground that's got TCE and PCE in it, and then you have a plume, which is an area of sewer gas, the sewer lines that are contaminated along here, and then the soil as well. So the plume is just an area
identified with contamination.
Think of it like a cloud underground of TCE or PCE or any of the things that you don't want around you.
Yeah, they find that by, if they're looking for a groundwater plume, what they do is put monitoring wells in different radius outside of the actual area of possible contamination. So they go out until they get a clean hit or clean water, and then inside of that is what they're looking at as the plume.
This was first on our radar because it is already, an active site that, they were monitoring, but there are multiple areas around here. Actually, there's about 5 companies who just got served notices of liability for having toxic releases. So they're going to investigate those as well. And they were on our radar to begin with. It's not an uncommon degreaser to use in manufacturing, and it's a very industrial kind of area. So, but yeah, when you look at the map of where all of our kids with cancer are, and that's really how it started, was more looking at where everybody was, which led us back to here, because then they all just ended up being like within a mile and a half. Probably 90% of our kids in Franklin are a mile and a half or less. And one of our highest hits of TCE or PCE was a mile and a half south of here in a home.
A week like this, what is the first thing you're thinking about when you get up in the morning?
It's Emma, for sure. Emma is definitely, Emma Grace fuels this fire for me very emotionally, obviously, because there are many days when I just want to be like, deuces, I'm out. This is too much. I've paid the ultimate price, and especially when you get some backlash, or you have to worry about where you have conversations in town. Are people people overhearing those conversations? Could they manipulate or twist them or misunderstand? And am I going to upset anyone or offend anyone? Or
well, in what way? You're worried about environmental contaminants.
Right.
How is that controversial?
Because people are worried about their home values, and they're worried about their businesses, and I get all that, but ultimately, some people don't want to test their home because they think if you find something in it the value of their home is going to go down. Emma was born in 2001. She was born on her exact due date. That was July 16th, and she's a big fat baby, and she came out with a full head of hair, and she ate every 45 minutes. She's fat. Babies do that. So, but she was always a really smart kid. The first time she spoke, she was 7 months old, and she said, "I don't know," because my sisters kept asking her a question, and they'd go, "I don't know." And next thing she says it, and I discounted it. I said, "That's not what she said." And then they got her to repeat it. So she was, and always an old soul, always very introspective and quiet to people she didn't know, but very mouthy at home, very much my daughter at home. Once she got to know you, she was a lot like me. Like, if we like you, we're probably going to give you a hard time. And if we don't, we'll probably just be polite. So she's a lot like me that way. She was a swimmer. She started swimming on swim team when she was 5. And then the twins, Sam and Sophie, were born when she was 4, and she got herself a little boy baby doll and a little girl baby doll. So what 4-year-old wouldn't be thrilled with that?
Yeah.
So it just so happens that we had a bunch of sick kids that the pieces got put together enough to say there's something fishy here, and these kids are all too close. You got to figure within I'm going to say 300 yards of my house, within a 3-year time span, we had, in just 300 yards in just one direction. I should qualify it, because if I go 100 yards in another direction, I can add more numbers. But so 300 yards to the east of me, and we are looking at 4 kids with brain tumors and 1 kid with leukemia from 2011 to 2014. And that's just that little tiny spot.
When you buy a house, or when your kids go out to the bus stop, or your kids are at school or playing soccer, you shouldn't have to wonder if the air that they're breathing is poison. You shouldn't have to worry about that. And I think that's the ultimate goal, is to make sure that the community is safe and is as pretty on the inside as it is on the outside, because it is a beautiful city. But if there's an issue, if we have contamination issues underground, in the air, in the water, people don't want to have to deal with that, and nor should people be scared to live in their homes. So the ultimate goal is to be able to have everything cleaned up, to accountability, responsibility, and people feel safe. We wouldn't be where we are without Sandra Chapman from Channel 13, who actually started the investigation initially and brought all of this to light.
We took her back for an MRI, and I was in there with her, and I knew she had a brain tumor when the tech walked back in the room, because she came back in and said that they were going to use contrast dye in her IV just so they could see better. And her first MRI was without, the first part, it was supposed to just be an MRI with no contrast, no dye. And I knew the only reason they wanted to see better was because they saw something. And so then I knew. Dr. Bentz came in to tell us about the MRI, and of course I'm smiling to Emma and talking, trying to act like everything's cool, and he came in and he cried before he opened his mouth, and we all cried, and he said, when you're done, when you get a minute, if you want to come look, I'll show you her images. And when he pulled them up on the computer, I know I howled, I think. I don't know that what came out was like a scream. And I feel like in some ways I gave my coworkers PTSD because everybody's sitting there who's just, But what happened as soon as it was up on the screen, I knew Emma was gonna die. It was so big. And it had crossed multiple areas of her brain, and I just knew. Of course, I wanted to hope against hope. I mean, we sent her chart everywhere, all over this country. Everybody I knew, I pulled every string I had. CEOs of hospital networks were calling in favors for me, and of course, Riley does an amazing job. They send it to everyone, but everybody came back and said the same thing. It was inoperable, and it was a glioblastoma. So
you just want people to feel safe in their homes. You want your kids to feel safe. You don't want to have to worry about them going to a friend's house and breathing that air, or playing in soccer or baseball in the soil and worrying about that, or eating the corn that's growing in that soil with that water, or touching something. I mean, these are all things that after you've been exposed, ironically, to the knowledge that we have now, you can't, it's like toothpaste, you can't put it back in the tube after you squeeze it. So, I mean, we have to do something with it. And if we don't do something with it, who's going to? So, I mean, ultimately, we'll push forward. We'd love to see clean margins all over Franklin, right? And I mean, Franklin's not rare. This is happening not just in Franklin, but this is also happening in other places in the county, in the state, in the nation. I mean, this is all over. Franklin's not rare. This is everywhere. I mean, this is going on. Ignorance of just not knowing how to dispose of chemicals because maybe there were no protocols or no guidelines 60 years ago, to, people dropping the ball or, I mean, so.
Her spirit, there's a great video of her dancing to the song, Taylor Swift song, Shake It Off, in November. So just like a month before she died, it was my mom's birthday. We were at the bowling alley. And, that kid got up and smiled. And she was going through some shit. And she even said one time, it was so funny, she caught herself. We were at Riley in the hospital, and something about we had to do, and she didn't want to do it, but she was like, this is just bullshit. And I was like, excuse me? Because I cuss like a sailor, but my kids know better. They know better. And I said, you can say it, it's bullshit. You're right, it's 100% bullshit. So, but she still every day was smiling and laughing and, fighting, and she never asked, not to do something that she needed to do. And so she was a fighter, and she is this fight for me. This is, everything about this is about her.
I'm Shannon Lisa. I'm Program Director of the Edison Wetlands Association based in New Jersey.
I'm Mark Cram, and I'm the Chief Scientist for Groundwell Technologies.
Why am I here? Why am I here in Indiana? Why would I fly out all the way from New Jersey why do you care about this? Yeah, when I could be in my own bed. Well, because I don't just care about the kids in my state. I don't just care about the people in my family. I care about kids in Indiana. I care about the families here in Indiana, and we're all Americans, and everybody has that right to life and liberty, and living in their home and raising their families without fear of poison gas coming up. So, this community is definitely close to my heart, and every community we work with as well, because nobody asks to live, next to or on top of a contaminated site.
Okay, so we're about to introduce a sample to the machine for analysis. Okay, that easy. It gets drawn into the machine. You'll hear in a minute. Hear that? Then it just got drawn in to the column. It'll run through the column, and then it'll be detected by these two detectors, and it'll report the concentrations. Within 10 minutes, I'm ready for another sample. So it's very quick, and you get instant gratification. You can start to understand where things of interest might be located.
But the thing is, if you can't stand us, and you think we're full of shit, and you think we're fear mongers, and you think this is all for attention or whatever, if your kid gets cancer, I'm still gonna fight for your kid. All of the kids on our list, we call them our kids. And we haven't even met all of them, not even close, but they're our kids, because every single one of those kids, every single one of their parents has had to sit where we sit. And, so for us, this is the right thing to do.
Midwesticism is viewer supported. If you like this story and you want to see more, visit patreon.com/Dan Cannon.